When you think about businesses that are selling through the roof, Allbirds or Skims, sure, you think about a great product, a cool brand, and brilliant marketing. But an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the business, making selling, and for the shoppers buying, simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. Nobody does selling better than Shopify, home of the #1 checkout on the planet. And the not-so-secret secret, with Shop Pay, that boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts going abandoned and way more sales going. So if you're into growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling on the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Businesses that sell more sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout Skims uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/audioboom. All lowercase. Go to shopify.com/audioboom to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/audioboom.
Let's talk to Simon Marks, LBC's Washington correspondent. I just saw footage of the president and thought he was coming out to speak and then realised it was old footage. So, Simon, what can we expect?
Well, I've got a bit of old sound for you, Sheila, from just earlier this week when Donald Trump, you remember, was sitting alongside the Canadian Prime Minister, Mark Carney. And he suddenly disclosed to Mr. Carney and to the White House press corps that later in the week and before he departed the United States on his first overseas trip in the second term of his presidency, he's heading off next week to Saudi Arabia, Qatar and the United Arab Emirates, he had a big surprise that he was going to pull out of the hat. Here's how he described it.
I think before then we're going to have a very, very big announcement to make, like as big as it gets, and I won't tell you on what, but it's going to, and it's very positive. I'd tell you if it was negative or positive. I can't keep that out. It is really, really positive. And that announcement will be made either Thursday or Friday or Monday before we leave. But it'll be one of the most important announcements that have been made in many years about a certain subject.
About a certain subject. Now, most observers in the room wondered if it was going to be relating to the Middle East. But now it seems that that announcement is the one we are about to hear from President Trump and the British government, namely that he has done some kind of a trade agreement with the UK. And the language that Donald Trump used there really reveals how badly he needs this agreement and how badly he needs a win here. He did not want to leave the United States and head off to Saudi Arabia, having told the American people that his trade policy was going to usher in a new golden age, having told the American people just 10 days ago or so that 200 governments and territories were lining up in Washington, kissing my ass, he said, saying that they wanted to do trade deals, and he hadn't been able to announce a single one. They thought they were going to get Japan across the line in the event a Japanese delegation visiting Washington went home with nothing, again indicating that they were finding it very difficult to negotiate with the president and with his Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent. So the fact that for Donald Trump, this is clearly, as he put it there, you know, one of the biggest deals that you could imagine, and he's describing this on social media, as we know, as a full and comprehensive agreement, even if it's not a full and comprehensive agreement, he is certainly going to spin this, as he was doing on his Truth Social account within the last few hours, as the beginning of that golden age that he promised Americans.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I've been talking with our callers about the political win that this is or needs to be. You know, depending, we'll get the details in a few minutes, but that it needs to be for Keir Starmer. But it's interesting that you're saying here that he needs it just as much.
I think in many ways he might need it even more. I mean, there's a risk, by the way, in this description that he's using of the deal as being full and comprehensive. Because if this really was a full, comprehensive trade agreement between the United States and the UK, The American Constitution says that Congress would have to ratify it. So if it falls short of being full and comprehensive, as I'm sure the White House will simultaneously be arguing, it will be able to come into force possibly without any action in Congress. And remember, this is not a president who particularly cares to spend very much time steering legislation through Congress, and trade agreements are notoriously difficult to steer through Capitol Hill. But what is also going to be revealed by the detail of this announcement, and there will be other leaders and other governments all over the world watching this very closely, is what kind of concessions is Donald Trump now prepared to make in order to bring some trade agreements across the transom. We know that they've got ongoing conversations with Israel, with Vietnam and South Korea that they think are getting close to some kind of conclusion. But everyone is going to be looking to see precisely what concessions has Keir Starmer managed to draw out of Donald Trump and his administration. And remember, this is a surprise, because it was not many days ago that we were hearing that the Chancellor had come to accept that Britain was in the second or even third group of countries with whom the United States might negotiate. Earlier this week, we saw Peter Navarro, the president's very hardline trade advisor, describing the UK as a compliant servant of communist China, and indicating that the UK was at risk of having its blood sucked dry by the vampire that he described Beijing to be. So there's clearly been some kind of very rapid work that's been done over the course of the last few days to get this ready to be presented to the public. And it's not just going to be the American and British publics watching this. It is going to be foreign leaders all over the world who are going to see if they can work out how they can craft the deal that Sir Keir Starmer and the British government appear to have done.
I read here, literally just coming now, that Peter Mandelson, the ambassador, is to attend the deal announcement in the Oval Office. Obviously, Keir Starmer was here and is here in the UK for the VE Day celebrations. He's already told us, be making a statement afterwards. But am I right to assume we can't underplay or overstate Peter Mandelson's role in all of this?
Oh, absolutely. And I had sort of assumed that he would be on hand. The White House has made it clear that British officials were going to be at the White House for this announcement. They did not disclose who those officials were going to be, but it seemed highly likely that it would be Peter Mandelson.
Will he be in the chair, though? Will he be in the big yellow chair, or will he be sitting on one of the sofas? That
is the big question. Will he enter the increasingly gilded chamber from which Donald Trump now presides? But clearly, Lord Mandelson has been very much in the front lines of trying to make progress here. And progress now appears to be made. But the devil really will be in the details. Is there going to be any alleviation? I mean, beyond any agreement that's been made on cars and steel and AI and tech, is there going to be any alleviation more broadly from Donald Trump's baseline 10% reciprocal tariffs, which of course are not reciprocal tariffs, and what is he going to say about the reasons for striking this deal with the UK as the first deal that has come across the transom? Because the British government has always argued that where Donald Trump is grousing that all of these countries all over the world have trade deficits with the United States, that he views as being the supreme evil, and he wants absolutely to eviscerate. Well, Lord Mandelson and the Prime Minister and Rachel Reeves and Jonathan Reynolds have all argued that actually the United Kingdom does not have a trade deficit with the United States, because there are ways of reading two-way trade that allow you to conclude that it is pretty much even Stevens between the two countries. So what does all that mean in terms of the determination on the part of Donald Trump to strike a deal with the UK? And there will be, I think, among trade analysts, interest in why the UK is first, and some of those other countries that were expected to get trade agreements across the line have failed. And
it's with the role here and the influence of the importance of Peter Mandelson in it. It's worth remembering, isn't it, that he has a long history running EU trade policy. our policy with the EU, that's as critical, really, isn't it? Because that meeting on the 19th of May is just the latest in those rounds of talks about softening our trade arrangements with Brussels.
Yeah, very much so. And when Peter Mandelson arrived in Washington, of course, there were questions about whether he was going to be the right man for the job. Was Donald Trump going to view him through those European tinted glasses, which would be very much a negative in Donald Trump's mind, because remember, he claimed within the last few weeks that the European Union was created in order to screw the United States, as he so elegantly put it. And was Peter Mandelson going to be sufficiently nuanced and subtle and sensitive to the realities of trying to engage in diplomacy in Washington, D.C. these days, which is there's no precedent for how complicated this is for all diplomats in Washington now to try and navigate, or, given his past and his reputation, might he prove to be a bit too much of a bull at a gate? Well, let's see what the nature is of the agreement that has been crafted here, but there's no question whatsoever that he's played a frontline role in crafting it.
So a necessary win for both leaders, really, by the sounds of it, Simon.
Yeah, I think absolutely, definitely. I mean, you know, your team here in London will opine more than I will about Keir Starmer's need for an agreement, but it's absolutely apparent, you know, that off the back of the India agreement earlier this week, it will be very useful to Sir Keir Starmer to be able to point to this as another achievement, assuming it is.
Okay.
But I think for Donald Trump, absolutely vital.
I'll let you go and see what he says. When he says it, we'll bring it to you live here on LBC. Stay with us and we'll hear from Keir Starmer afterwards, wherever he is at the moment. He says he'll make an announcement afterwards and take questions from journalists, including our own.